Broadcasting with 2 cans and a string from the abandoned Long John Silver's behind the abandoned Pizza Hut on Center Avenue, it's Everything, Anything, and Nothing Really, with your hosts Eric Walensky and Matthew Maynard. Hey folks, good evening. I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
And good evening to you, Matt.
Good evening, Eric.
How are things?
Things are delightful, as always.
That's good.
Yes.
Delightful on this end, too. I'm super excited we're doing this podcast again. I mean, rough circumstances that brought it about, but I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're getting some good feedback, or at least getting feedback from some people that they're excited about it, too. So
I know.
So that's good. Keep your feedback coming, folks, and keep telling friends about us.
Yeah, spread the word. Yeah, this is fun. This is fun for me. I mean, I like putting out content. I like just chatting with you. This is a good time.
Yeah, I enjoyed chatting with you too.
You know, like this looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Well, it's not really the beginning. We've known each other over 20 years.
Well, yes. I was quoting Casablanca, Matt.
Well, yeah, that's a movie.
It is a movie. Speaking of Casablanca, though, did you know there's actually a Casablanca, North Carolina?
That's not where the movie took place?
Yes.
I guess I was misinformed.
Oh!
Another movie quote from that movie.
Good one.
Yeah.
Nice job. Yeah, it took place in Casablanca, North Carolina. There was a small pocket of Nazis there, took over. And,
yeah, you're going to get a letter.
A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, it's actually in an area of Fort Bragg, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And it made me wonder, what other unique American city names are there? And I found quite a few odd ones. The first one that really struck me, there's a town called Bacon Level, Alabama.
Bacon Level. Now that's a level of altitude that I'm not familiar with.
Exactly.
Are they standing on pigs or something?
Yeah, I know. Like, is it a unit of measurement?
It's like that thing from the DNR. Instead of 6 feet, there's 3 pigs.
It's like the way when they read the weather. The barometer is at 32.7 inches of mercury, winds from the southeast at 22 miles an hour, and the bacon level is at 22.7 grams of lard.
It's sizzling today, folks.
Oh, you would make a great weatherman in Alabama.
I know, just in that one town. That's all I would have for them, too. It's going to be a little greasy today.
Another one they had, keeping with the food, there's a town called Forks of Salmon, California.
I think I'd rather live in Forks of Salmon.
Than the bacon level?
Right. It just sounds classier, doesn't it?
It kind of does. It sounds like a pretentious little town.
Yeah, I'll bet that's where the rich people hang out.
Lots of guys riding around in limos trading Grey Poupon back and forth.
Could be spoons of Grey Poupon in Forks of Salmon.
Yes. Spoons of Grey Poupon in Forks of Salmon.
Right. Well, there's a town in Massachusetts. Actually, this is interesting. There are 2 towns in the Northeast called Satan's Kingdom. One is in Massachusetts, and the other one is in Vermont. And I did some research on why it was, because that's an oddly specific name for 2 states to have.
Yes.
And so the one in Massachusetts, it was named Satan's Kingdom, and this is what it says on Wikipedia. Named Satan's Kingdom because when settlers came into the area in the 1670s during King Philip's War, there were reportedly Native American villagers there who defended their land.
What?
No, it doesn't make any... I guess, where would you make that leap?
Yeah, that seems like an odd connection to make.
Yeah.
Hey, there's some native indigenous peoples here. That's Satan's kingdom.
Yeah, that doesn't make any... Then the one in Vermont, a little different. The one in Vermont was so named for their rocky soil, which is unsuitable for farming.
They just take it right to the extreme, right? It's not rocky ground. It's not rough soil. Oh, it's Satan's kingdom. That escalated quickly.
It doesn't say which one was named first. I couldn't figure that out. I mean, you'd think one would have to be copying the other, but
Sure, sure. And who heard the first one though and went running back to their state with "I got it! I got it!" You got to believe Massachusetts is the one that started it first, right? With the Salem witch trials and everything, they were just looking for trouble back then.
Satan's around here somewhere.
A lot of witches around there.
Probably a neighboring suburb called Satan's Closet or something.
You know my motto with witches, though, Matt, right?
I've heard it a few times. That's a weird thing to tell people. Like, yeah, I know all about Eric's stance on witches, but it has come up.
Witches, leave them alone. That's my motto, man. That's what I live by.
Well, I obviously don't because of you've seen who I've dated in the past. That's
this
horrible.
Conversation's taking a turn. A couple more towns that I thought were pretty funny. There's Burnsdown, South Carolina. I would not want to live there. That just sounds creepy.
I would bet the insurance is really expensive in a town called Burnsdown.
Exactly.
Where are you buying your house? Burnsdown?
That'd be like living somewhere named Floods a Lot, Missouri.
Sinkhole, Ohio.
There's Hooker, South Dakota.
I wonder what their main industry is.
Well, if they're not clean, I can guess what their main export is.
There is a town in Tennessee called Difficult, Tennessee. And
okay.
I looked up why it was named that, and it says on Wikipedia, one version of the name's origin holds that when residents applied for a post office, the application was returned because the preferred name was, quote, too difficult.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one version. What other versions?
They don't have any other. That's all they have on Wikipedia.
That's all Wikipedia says?
Yeah. It's like a cliffhanger. He just...
One version? What are the other ones? I don't know.
Choose your own adventure, Wikipedia.
See, right there, whenever there's like something strange like that, like the name or how did this term come about, and somebody starts with, well, one version says it just means it's utter garbage, right? Like, nobody knows. That's what Wikipedia should say. Nobody knows.
One version is... What's the other version? I don't have another version, and that one was too good not to tell.
I had to say that one. Because, yeah, even if there's one version or a million versions, unless there's an agreed-upon thing, then nobody knows. That's the answer.
Yeah, and that, in all of these towns, I mean, there had to have been somebody who was writing down the town history at some point that remembered. I mean, it just isn't going to be like, oh, I forgot how we named an entire town, you know?
Right.
So...
Somebody's that's in the record somewhere.
Right. I'm fascinated with the origins of town names. That does interest me because there is always a story behind it. And there's one town in Texas called Jot Em Down, Texas.
Jot 'em down.
Jot 'em down. And I looked up why it was called that. It was named after the store on the Lum and Abner radio show in the 1930s.
Really?
Yes. So it was named after a store on a radio show, the Jot 'em Down store.
Wow.
Yeah.
That could be the earliest known incident of pop culture influencing real life situations.
So yeah, the Jot 'em Down store, named after Lum and Abner's store.
Yeah, the origins of town names are, it is really interesting. Like, and of course, you know this town, Caro, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Not a particularly funny or fancy name, but I looked this up. The origin of Caro, Michigan, Caro, originally the founders wanted to name it Cairo, Michigan, after Cairo, Egypt. However, the town council decided that might be too confusing.
To who?
To have Cairo, Egypt, and Cairo, Michigan. So they just took out the I and called it Caro. Yeah, that's what I'm like. Who were they confusing?
Oh my gosh.
Like, were they afraid tourists were going to show up looking for the pyramids? Sorry, folks, you're looking for Cairo. It's quite a ways from here. Well, what are you doing naming naming your town Cairo, too. You're just asking for trouble.
That is, oh my gosh, I did not know that. That is wonderful. I thought you were going to say they were named after a pancake syrup or something.
No, I thought that was great. And I actually think that in honor of that, Caro should change the name of its high school mascot to the Caro Pharaohs.
Oh, that would be great.
That's got a ring to it, right?
It
and
does.
It pays tribute to the early settlers.
I like that. I like that a lot.
They're not going to do it.
No, not because you said it. But
hey, you can't put a pyramid there. That's where the Walmart's going to go. Get out of here.
What are more people going to come see, a pyramid or a Walmart? It's Michigan.
I wonder, though, if for the first couple years of the town being named, if people were like, oh, where do you live, Caro? Did you mean Cairo? No, I didn't. I'm tired of explaining it.
That reminds me of years ago, I was in a church and they were going to read one of Paul's letters, and they introduced it by saying, this is something the Apostle Paul wrote to people in the pagan city of Alexandria, Egypt. But instead of saying Egypt, the speaker said Alexandria, Virginia. So he got
That's just
Alexandria, Virginia mixed up. The pagan city of Alexandria, Virginia. And after he said it, there was kind of like a pause where he stopped to think about, is that right? And then he kept going, and
that's just like they filmed Casablanca in North Carolina.
Right. Yeah, because
whoops,
wasn't that where Ingrid Bergman was from with that accent?
Yeah, lots of funny names. A couple more here. There's Disco, Wisconsin. Yeah, I guess those people really get down.
Yeah, I guess so.
Hey, I'm not above a dumb pun, okay? Not above it at all. This last one here, though, I think is perfect for today's stay-at-home orders. Recluse, Wyoming.
Yes, that would be perfect.
That's dead on, man.
Yep, the people of Recluse, they're not struggling with the stay-at-home order.
And of course, Matt, we can't forget the city that never sleeps. The city so nice they named it twice. The city by the bay, the one and only Bay City, Michigan.
They named it twice?
Well, I might be overblowing that a little bit.
Bay City?
Baby City.
Bay City.
Yeah, so when we left off on the podcast, I had just moved to Bay City, Michigan, and I was a newbie. I was a new kid in town at the time.
That's right, and everybody was talking about it. They were like, who's the new kid?
But yeah, now I lived here 3 years, almost 4. It's a great little town. See, when I grew up, and I don't know if you felt this way, but Bay City was a practice town. It's where all the driver's education teachers would bring their driver's education students to teach them to parallel park.
Oh, that's true. We did that. Of course, when I was in driver's training, our driver's training instructor took us to Bay City, which was about a 40-minute drive from my hometown, and said, get me home by 5 o'clock or you fail.
Break every law in the book to do it.
Luckily, I knew my way around Bay City pretty well because I had family that lived there, and so once he found that out, he wouldn't let me drive. He put somebody else in the driver's seat and had me sit in the back and keep my mouth shut.
Oh, that's dirty pool, man.
Yeah, well, I eventually got my driver's license. I was 36, but, took me that long to get him home on time.
Yeah, you had to break the rules of time and space to do it.
They were patient. They just kept letting me come back every year.
Yeah. But yeah, I just always looked at Bay City as a practice city. I mean, we had to come here to parallel park. They had one-way streets here.
You'd never seen a one-way street? I mean, I know where you grew up, and
well,
you weren't in Recluse, Wyoming, for God's sake.
I know. Okay, I know. They just seem more exotic in Bay City.
The one-ways are more exotic. Boy, if that isn't their town motto, I don't know what it is. Our one-ways are more exotic than your one-ways. Ours have palm trees painted next to them.
There was just something about Bay City, though, with the one-ways were just different here. It's like It's like how you go on vacation and you do the same stuff, but ice cream just tastes better on vacation than it does when you're at home. This is the same thing with Bay City. The one ways were just that much more singularly directional.
That was their second choice for town motto. It was.
The other thing I'm loving about Bay City now that I've been here, it's the unique architecture around here. I feel like Bay City is the imagination of a 5-year-old kid and a big pile of Legos. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like you go past buildings that have been here since the early 1900s, and then there's a planetarium that looks like a big orange funnel cake just sitting right there next to these historic buildings. And then just down from that is a newly renovated in 2015 set of townhouses. And then on the other side of that are brownstones that look like they came out of New York City. And it's all just lumped together in one big kid's imagination.
And 2 blocks away, there's a guy with tarp on his roof.
Yeah. Right. In the poor part of Lego Town.
Right. It's the poor part of Lego Town, which is the rest of the town.
Oh man, it is neat. I mean, this was a lumber town. Started as a lumber town. There's all the old historic homes of the lumber barons up and down Center Avenue, just down from where we're broadcasting from. Just so much uniqueness about this town.
Especially the one-ways.
I love the one-ways and the smell. You got to mention the sugar beet factory here.
Oh God, yes, that smell. For people that have never been to Bay City, I don't know if I'd recommend the smell.
Now, see, I love it because growing up in Carlton, we were right next to the sugar beet factories there, and that just smells like home to me.
I thought you were going to say Bay City's sugar beet smell was more exotic.
It's more pungent.
Breaks more EPA rules, maybe, but...
Well, Madonna is from Bay City, Michigan.
She is. She was born here.
Yes. She is actually quoted as saying, I guess she didn't live here very long, but she was born here. I think she's quoted as saying, when asked about Bay City, yeah, that place stinks.
Yeah. I remember when she said that like in the 1980s, and I remember it was a big controversy because she was asked about Bay City, Michigan, and she said it's a smelly little town or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember shortly after that, I was maybe 9, 10 years old, and we were in a restaurant in Bay City, my family, and it was kind of a nicer restaurant that had a guest book. I mean, not that fancy, but it was fancy enough that it had a guest. And I was looking in the guest book, and somebody had written, Madonna, I came back to this smelly little town. And I was floored. I'm like, she was here?
You took the page out of the book.
I know. I was like, I saved this. Supposedly she does come back to Bay City a few times a year. I mean, people have told me that they've seen her getting ice cream.
Really?
Yeah, at St. Lawrence's. Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll have to keep an eye out.
Yep.
But yeah, Bay City, it's so cool. There's a lot of cool festivals and stuff here. They have the Hell's Half Mile Film Festival. And the Hell's Half Mile Film Festival is named after this half-mile strip during the logging days where all the loggers would go, and that's where the bars and the brothels and the gambling was. It's a historic part of Bay City. You've actually been on the Hell's Half Mile walking tour, haven't you?
It was a walking tour, yeah. So it was interesting. A lot of it was, here on this spot in 1874, a man came out of a bar and bit another man's ear off. And I'm thinking to myself, those people that were doing that in 1874, little did they know that there were going to be people, generations of people that were going to be wanting to know what they did. How did they chew that man's ear off? The town fathers in 1874, they probably figured their names would live forever. No, it was the guy who bit the ear off the other guy.
Exactly. Now, see, that's great because that's a fact, right? On this spot, a man bit another man's ear off. There's no one version of the story goes.
No, it was interesting too because there were people on the tour who seemed to know a lot about Bay City history, and they're like, "That's not the way I heard the story."
Oh, jeez. Hecklers on a walking tour?
The way I heard it, the guy came down here and looked around, and they all had their own version. And the poor tour guide, he had done research and stuff. He's like, I never heard that one.
Oh, you got me there.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one part where we went near a building where he was telling us that a woman danced there, and she was known as having the prettiest ankle in all of Michigan.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's saucy.
Yeah, I mean you don't hear that anymore.
Men would come from miles around to gaze at that ankle.
That's right.
She could work it.
So yeah, Bay City has a lot to offer, but it also has a lot of problems right now, or at least one big problem.
Yeah.
And that is Bay City has 4 bridges, 2 of which are owned by the city, 2 of which are owned by the state. The city is running out of money, doesn't know how to repair the 2 bridges that they have. So there's been this long, controversial discussion about what to do with the bridges. And it ended last December with the city council voting to privatize the bridges. They're going to sell their bridges to a private firm who will then turn those bridges into toll bridges, which has really angered a lot of people.
Yep.
And
whether the toll bridges are good or bad, I mean that can be debated. That's personal opinion. The problem is it's just been a can that's been kicked down the road so far. These bridges have needed repair for a long time, and it's taken a long time for them to finally make a decision about this. And there's just a lack of funds to do this properly.
Right. Also, if you live in Bay City, you would know that at any given time, it seems like, any 2 of the bridges in Bay City are shut down for repairs. So you may use your usual bridge and then, oh, shoot, that's shut down, and then have to go away to the other end of town to use the other bridge. So, that's become an issue that a lot of people are frustrated with.
And one thing I wanted to point out that people who might not be familiar, all the bridges in Bay City, the 4 bridges, they're all openable.
Drawbridges. Yes.
Thank you, Matt. They're all drawbridges. So that even adds to the congestion of traffic if you happen to hit a drawbridge that's up on one of the 2 bridges that's actually open and not under construction.
Right. Yeah, so it's just frustration all around. And so the frustration erupted at this Bay County Commission or Bay City Commission meeting in December. And so people were yelling at the commission and very angry at them, understandably. So one of the commissioners, Commissioner Chris Gerard, said he thought the plan was the best way to get the best possible outcome for residents. And here is his quote. I wish I could deliver some kind of Christmas miracle that, yes, there's this pot of funds, Madonna's coming in, and she's giving us all this money. It's just, I don't see that path forward. So, obviously, that was their first thought, was maybe Madonna will come in and save us.
And see, that's why I said this is a problem that's been kicked down the road so far, because, yeah, the commission is just sitting there staring at this pink telephone with cone bra receiver, apparently Madonna's hotline, waiting for that to ring and go, hey, guys, here's all that money you needed for the bridges. I honestly think that's what they've been doing all these years. Instead of putting together some gradual plan, they've just been waiting for Madonna to swoop in.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he had to say that in a meeting after people were yelling at him, that just gives you an idea of what the thinking was.
He even references a Christmas miracle.
I know, it's
like, was Santa Claus part of this plan?
I wish Clarence the Angel would come here when we're on the bridge and show us what life would be like without the bridges. Frank Capra's dead, folks.
That slays me that he would actually reference that.
And then there's been other things happening on the bridge since then.
Well, yeah, because it's not just people who are using these bridges.
Yeah, like this spring, there was an article that the headline, Deer Use Bay City's Liberty Bridge to Cross the Saginaw River. Which
Now remember, this is a real, honest-to-goodness Michigan news article. This is news, folks.
Stop the presses. The deer are using bridges now.
Because, like I said, it's a practice city. The deer are practicing.
So the article starts out, driving to work early one morning, a woman was stopped by an unusual sight on one of Bay City's drawbridges, a herd of deer. And then it goes on to say she came across a group of 8 to 10 deer. Her quote, "Me and my fiance were on our way to work. We were rushing out the door and we were almost late because of the herd." How do you explain that one to the boss? "We were late because of the herd on the bridge."
The quote continues, "We thought the car ahead of us was having engine trouble and we went to go around him. Then I had to stop the car really quick. I didn't want to scare the deer. I didn't know if they'd run at me or jump off the bridge. I was thinking, well, do I wait here? I don't know what to do." She was scared that she was going to drive the deer to jump off the bridge.
And luckily, the deer were in no emotional discomfort or anything. They were not planning on jumping off the bridge. They were perfectly content on the bridge.
She finishes by saying, "I've seen them swimming across the river. I live right by the bridge and walk down the rail trail all the time, and I've seen them there, but I've never seen them on the bridge." But now my question is, though, once these bridges become privatized and there's a toll, how are the deer going to afford that?
Right. Well, they have a few bucks.
Oh!
I know, that was too easy, wasn't it?
See, we're not above a good
I
pun
know,
on this podcast.
But then the same day, a herd of deer, and it doesn't say whether it was the same one, was spotted along the parking lot of Hampton Elementary School. Jake Thompson, 13, a 7th grader, says, "I was walking by the entrance to Hampton and there were deer in the soccer field. Then they all started running because they saw us. I'm sure they were there because there are less people around. It was pretty cool because you don't normally see that."
So this article, that isn't even news to start with, is now delved into just seeing deer as news.
He goes on to say, the youngster that gave the quote also has played numerous games of soccer, kickball, and football in that field, but never seen deer present there. And
This article didn't even start out as news and then just became people talking.
And then the DNR goes on to say, "We're not noticing any changes in incidents for this time of year beyond what we normally see because of the stay-at-home order. Most animals people are seeing are pretty typically habituated to human activity. They're already occupying those urban or suburban habitats." Goes on to say, later in the article, the deer are able to tolerate human activity and occupying these spaces already. Just now that people are less active and not commuting back and forth to work, the animals might be operating at different times than they normally would.
Operating at different times.
They're on a different schedule. They're taking shifts that we would not normally see.
Well, it's stepping outside of Bay City, but it's still on the topic of deer. Grand Rapids, Michigan, about 2.5 hours southwest of here. Deer run wild in Grand Rapids neighborhood.
That sounds like a video that you used to see like in the bargain bin, like deer run wild, like they're having a wet t-shirt contest or something.
Yes, down in New Orleans. Yes. Yeah. And there's a picture. There's about 20 deer running wild. Drinking beer. Playing beer pong. Flashing people. There's about 20 of them. And again, this is news, folks. Somebody saw deer in a neighborhood and had to call the press. He saw all these deer. A professional photographer, Aaron Geller, he said, "This is crazy in the city," he recalled thinking. So the reporter who wrote this all down was like, "What were you thinking when you saw the deer?" "This is crazy in the city." In the country, you see a lot of deer, not in the city. Well, thanks for clarifying where we're supposed. But hey, deer are operating differently now. Yeah, basically, that's all this story is. It's about a page talking about seeing deer in a neighborhood, which happens even when there's not a pandemic. But the line that gets me the most here, Geller said the deer saw him get out of his car to film, but did not appear too bothered. He figured there were 20 deer, maybe more. He said the deer were wary, but looked comfortable in the neighborhood with everyone inside. Isn't that everybody in a new neighborhood? Like, whenever I go somewhere, I'm wary. I mean, I don't know. Am I in a good part of town, bad part of town? Should I lock the doors on my car? I don't know. Keep my wallet in the front pocket. But you still got to appear comfortable. Otherwise, you're a target.
Mm-hmm.
So these deer did it right. They, they stuck together. They were suspicious, but they were cool about it.
And he didn't get the deer side of the story, which is bad reporting.
Oh, he left half the story on the table.
Yeah. What were you thinking when you saw the guy in the car filming you? I was wary. It was a new neighborhood. Didn't know what to do.
I mean, I was nervous, but there were like 20 of us, so.
Well, what was he going to do?
It's where we live, Matt.
Yeah.
This is news. This is news. Well, anyway, Matt, those are just a couple stories that are very, very dear to me. Not above the pun.
Yeah, I guess.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up for this week.
Well, I'll take my dough and leave.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah. We could do this all day. Just with the words dough and buck. We could just keep using those over and over again.
Oh, man, people are going to be fawning all over this podcast. So, you folks out there in Listenerland, Oklahoma?
Yeah, I was going to say, what state's that in? It was named because the ground didn't sound right. Listenerland.
But to you folks out there in Listenerland, please remember to like us on Facebook, listen to us on Podbean, and tell your friends about us too, please.
Yes, tell your friends and even tell your enemies.
But don't tell our enemies.
Especially this one guy.
So, for everything, anything, and nothing really, I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
And you folks, have a good night. Hey, Matt, can you open the bridge?
Yeah, give me a second.